I want to talk about an important issue today, anti-Semitism. But before I continue, I want to pose a question to those of you listening. Have you or an immediate family member ever experienced anti-Semitism in your life? Do you know others who have faced it? Do you have family members that survived the Shoah? More tragically, do you have family members you've never had the chance to meet because they perished at the hands of the Nazis and their collaborators? I want us to think about this, and I want us to talk about this, because to those of us who are Jewish, it is clear what it means to be a Jew in the world. We know what anti-Semitism is because we've seen it, we've experienced it time and time again. I'm not sure how many of you use Twitter, but there was an interesting hashtag that was trending this week. For anyone unfamiliar with the platform, a hashtag, it's like a label regarding the subject of a post. And this label was incredibly popular among users. Hashtag Jewish privilege. It began with offensive and racist anti-Semitic tropes we know all too well. An accusation that over 90% of American media is owned by Jews. Hashtag Jewish privilege. A suggestion that while Christians worship Jesus, Jews worship money. Hashtag Jewish privilege. Israel gets money from the American government, and they use it to murder Palestinian children, while the same American government calls Hamas a terrorist organization. Hashtag Jewish privilege. Jews are overrepresented proportionally in universities. Hashtag Jewish privilege. One common claim was a repeat of Louis Farrakhan and David Duke's favorite lie, that Jews owned a majority of slaves, far more than whites did. And yet whites, not Jews, are blamed for the American slave trade. Another trick. Hashtag Jewish privilege. 20% of Canadian billionaires are Jews, despite their much smaller proportion of the population. Clearly, something nefarious occurred. Hashtag Jewish privilege. These are just a few of the examples of what were truly hateful posts being made. But then something else happened. Jews from all over started posting in response and sharing what they understood Jewish privilege to mean. One person asked, "Is it privilege that my mother never got to meet her grandparents because they were murdered? Or that her parents were robbed of their childhoods being put in death camps?" Hashtag Jewish privilege. Another shared a story as a kid of being called a kike in school, not being allowed to join the Boy Scout troop. Hashtag Jewish privilege. Another asks, is being less than 3% of the American population, yet the target of a majority of hate crimes, is that hashtag Jewish privilege? Celebrities like Sarah Silverman got in. She shared her story as a kid of having pennies thrown on her at the bus. Hashtag Jewish privilege. Israeli author Hen Mazig asked if Jewish privilege was when his grandparents were violently thrown out of Iraq and Tunisia, along with over 800,000 others, only wearing the clothes on their back. Is that hashtag Jewish privilege? Jews from around the world use this hashtag en masse to share their stories. Stories of family members lost in the Shoah, personal encounters with anti-Semitic slurs, even violent attacks. Asking, is this what people mean when they say Jewish privilege? Because we as Jews know what it means to walk in the world as a Jew, to hide your kippah, your Magen David, to wonder when you meet someone, should you even mention that you're Jewish? I was speaking with a member of our congregation this week. I'm sure most of you know him, Lou Van Delman. He told me that as a child of 13 or 14, he and some friends went for a walk in Montreal after their Passover Seder. They encountered another group of teens who first threw tomatoes at them and then physically attacked them. Why? Because that is what it meant to have the privilege of being Jewish in Montreal at that time. I always have a strange feeling when I walk into a church. Not because of the Christian symbols that adorn the walls, but because rarely, if ever, do I encounter a guard at the front. Often not even a locked door. I can't remember the last time I walked into a synagogue without a guard during an event, let alone a locked door. Is that Jewish privilege? I have attended countless meetings in this last year to discuss how to best ensure the safety of our congregants when they come to worship in the sanctuary. Not because of COVID, But what to do if someone walks in with a firearm? Is that Jewish privilege? I admit that sometimes during services my mind wanders. One of the most often subjects that it wanders to is a question. If someone walked in right now wanting to hurt us, which door would I ask my congregants to flee through? Where would I tell them to hide? What objects in this room could we use to defend ourselves? None of my non-Jewish colleagues I've spoken to have this as a regular thought when they're trying to lead their community in prayer. Every rabbi I've spoken to asks themselves the same questions. Is that Jewish privilege? We have a Beit Din coming up this week. We'll interview candidates who are choosing to be Jewish. I always ask a variety of questions of those who want to join our people. But one question I ask every candidate is, right now, millions of people don't care at all about you. But if you go through with this conversion, those same people would celebrate your death. Some of them would kill you themselves if they had the opportunity. Do you still want to do this? I ask this question not to scare them away, but because this is what it means to be Jewish. That is our privilege. We have been hated, we've been persecuted in every time, every society, every place we've ever lived in. That is what it means to be a Jew. So as I saw this unfold on Twitter this past week, I felt a deep sense of pride, a connection with all those posting, standing up to hate, sharing their experiences, Jews from around the world, Jews of different ages, different ethnicities, different levels of religious observance. They stood together and took over this hashtag. So the stories that came up when you searched it were not anti-Semitic, but were rather our stories, our experience of what it means to be a Jew. This was exactly the correct response, and it comes straight out of our parsha this week. In the second of our double reading today, it opens with a long list of all the places the Israelites stopped on their journey in the desert. Many of our commentators asked, why did the Torah need to give such a long, such a dry reading at such an exciting time? The Israelites are near the end of their journey. They're standing right at the edge of the promised land, and this is what the Torah decides to share? There must be a reason, because it doesn't drive the narrative. The Rambam offers us an incredibly timely answer, both in his day and in ours. He tells us that this list is meant to contradict the claims of others who will disparage us, who will lie about our history for their own aims. The Rambam even writes explicitly, this will happen in ancient and in modern times. He knew what we know, that to be Jewish means to be treated as the other, as less than. He knew this would not be a passing occurrence, but one that would happen time and time and time again throughout history. He knew the way to fight it as well. It is to know our history, to be able to refute the lies. Our greatest weapon is to know who we are, to know where we came from, to know every detail so we can tell our true stories when others seek to disparage us. That is what happened this week on Twitter. That is Jewish privilege. But there's another step beyond just knowing our history, beyond telling the story, because that's not enough. We must act differently because of it. The mitzvah that is most often repeated in the Torah is Ve'ahavtem et hager ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. Love the stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This is what it means to be Jewish, to act differently, to live differently in the world. You shall love the stranger, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. We know what it is like to be persecuted. And it is our job to stand up not only for ourselves, but for anyone who is persecuted for being different, for being the stranger. We know what it is like to be blamed as a whole for the bad actions of individual Jews. We must not only not stand for it from others, but we must not do it to others ourselves. We know what it is like to be held responsible for anything Israel does, simply because we are Jews. We must not tolerate it. And we must not allow others to be treated in the same way. We know what it is like to share a story of suffering, only to have our suffering explained by someone else, that what they faced was worse. We cannot allow our tragedies to be forgotten and ignored. Neither can we allow the suffering of others to be ignored. There is no winner in the contest of what community has been the most oppressed. Who faced the most hate is not the important question. The question we must ask is, what can we do to ensure that what happened to us, what happened in the past, never happens again? Not to us or to anybody else. That is Jewish privilege. We have a mission in this world, and that mission is to stand up for the stranger. We should walk in the world proud to be Jewish, proud of everything we have faced and overcome, proud of our commitment to standing up for our experience and for the experience of others. That is a sacred duty. Sometimes, just like in our Torah reading this Shabbat, we need to tell our story. We need to make sure that others know the truth, every single detail. Sometimes, though, we need to be willing to listen to the story of others, listen to the struggles they have faced, and to stand together with them, united against hate. I saw a miracle this week. Our people, a people so often divided between ourselves, stood together, united, proud of our shared history. My prayer this week is simple. May God guide us moving forward so we continue to stand united as a people. May we find the resolve to tell our story again and again and again until the whole world knows what it means to be a Jew. May we find the strength and the courage so that through the memory of our past, we continue to work together to ensure that neither we nor anybody else is ever treated as the stranger. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will.